As I'm recording this, I am sitting in the airport at Charlotte, North Carolina, trying to pretend like it's not super weird that I have headphones and a giant microphone in front of my face and am talking into it. You know what, guys? It's entertainment. Sometimes entertainment isn't pretty, and you have to record on the road while you're waiting to get on an airplane. And a couple weeks from now, I will be, August 27th through September 3rd. I'm going to be at House of Cards in Nashville, Tennessee. If you're anywhere near there, please come out. Come say hey. Having a blast with these shows. Had a lot of fun on the road. I've been to Texas and North Carolina, where I'm at now. And then in a couple of days, I'm going to D.C. and Virginia, and then head to Nashville for House of Cards. So come on out, check that out. Please drop us a line. Let us know what you like about the show. So many fun episodes coming up. Last week, I had a blast at Magic Live sharing those magic horror stories, and I actually had two more that we didn't get to fit into the episode. First of all, one of them came about because Nick Paul, my good buddy who hosts Two Magicians, One Mic, we sat down to record an episode of his podcast with none other than Piff the Magic Dragon, and Piff had a great horror story that we're going to share right here. If you want to hear the rest of the conversation, please subscribe to Nick's show, Two Magicians, One Mic. It's going to be a fantastic episode. You won't want to miss it. But we're going to lead off the show today with a story from Piff, followed immediately by a story from Jason Magic out of Chicago. And these are doozies, guys. Buckle up. Here we go.
Taylor's been doing fun on his podcast about interviewing.
What's Taylor's podcast?
It's called About to Break.
What's it about?
Breaking.
Trying to break into your industry before it breaks you.
Trying to break into your industry before it breaks you.
Yeah, so artists, entertainers, magicians.
But here's the thing. You need luck, and you need to work harder than, as hard as you can. You need all that stuff, but nothing's guaranteed.
Right.
There are people far more talented than me listening to this podcast, resenting me at this very moment.
Sure. That's most of our
And all
audience.
I can say is, you're correct. You probably are better than me.
But you did the work, and you showed up.
But I always had a big slab of luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're a magical dragon, so that helps.
And I'm a genuine mythical creature.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Anything like the reason I brought up Taylor, he's been interviewing people who have had like horrific gig stories. Anything like crazy that it's happening during a Vegas show?
Too many.
Well, what's like your favorite or top two?
A woman came up to me after the show. She didn't like me cursing. She said, "You shouldn't be allowed to curse in your show." And I said, "Well, I get to choose what I want to do in my show. That's why I like doing my show." And I appreciate, your thought on that, but I think it's funny enough. I think it's, what's the word? Justified. Oh, we got it together.
That's a television.
All right. I think it's justified when I use it and blah, blah, blah. And she said, "Well, I'm not allowed to say the N-word anymore, so you shouldn't be allowed to curse." And I said, "Well, I think we're done. I think we're done." I had a 90-year-old man just cuddle my butt in a meet and greet line.
Wow.
Just squeezing it. Just with his bony paws. Squeezing my butt.
Like, was he aware he was doing this, do you think?
Oh, he was more than aware.
Hey guys, this is Jason Magic, and I have the story of the century. Actually, it's 2 decades ago this summer.
Okay.
Straitjacket escape over the Clinton River in downtown Mount Clemens, Michigan.
Oh my gosh.
Reckless abandonment.
You're doing the straitjacket over the river, like on a crane or something?
So hanging from a crane by my ankles in a straitjacket.
Like you do on a Thursday.
Like you always do when you're 24 years old. And you have a few bucks to spend on kerosene.
Oh, jeez.
Thick 2-inch rope wick set on fire.
No.
Major publicity.
No.
Every news outlet in Metro Detroit shows up. They even bring their news chopper.
I was there for this. I was 11. I can confirm.
This is Nick Paul chiming in to say he was there. He was 11 years old watching this occur.
The lights go up. The rain comes down.
Oh, no.
It is the most god-awful, horrific scene for any entertainer performing outside. The crowd's waiting.
So to picture this, you're upside down, right?
Yes.
And you're above your ankles is on fire.
Correct.
Okay. Just for, people who don't know exactly
if you
when
guys
say,
want to visualize what it was, start a fire in the fireplace and climb inside of it without any protective gear.
How long until that happened?
So I go up. We light. I get hoisted up. The flames go immediately into an inferno. And within a minute and a half, the entire contraption comes crashing down on me. The spectator view was this guy is dead.
Oh my gosh.
Burning alive.
Hold on, let's go to our confirmation analyst, Nick Paul. Nick Paul.
It was a fireball. He was surrounded in fire.
The upside is I got out of the straitjacket.
Are you still in the air?
I'm still in the air.
So you're still suspended by the rope, but the thing that was on fire fell on top of you and has now made you on fire.
I appear to be a human fireball after getting out of this straitjacket. Tangled up in this mess, I'm immediately brought down, dunked in the river, removed from the river, a smoldering mess of smoke. By time I get unhooked and into the ambulance so they can check me out, minor sunburn on the face, few burn marks on my clothing, but walked away unscathed.
Oh my goodness.
And 20 years later, and I again, send this to your historian, could possibly be the most publicized straitjacket attempt in history.
Have you ever done it again?
So I did it the following year. All the media shows up and not one blip on the news. Because I walked away, no problem. I walked away unscathed.
I liked it better when he burned his face off.
Yeah,
I like that version better.
If it bleeds, it leads.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much, guys, for having me.
And obviously the moral of the story is,
if you don't get it right the first time, you try it the next year.
There you go, kids. Take a year off to heal. Get back on the rope.
That wound hasn't healed.
So there you have it. You got two magicians dealing with crazy crowds and fire. What else could you want? This week on the show, I sit down with Curtis the Mentalist, my new good buddy, Curtis Waltermire. He is in Kansas right now, where he lives, but he travels all around the country performing a hilarious comedy mentalism show, and it's a unique take. We get into it. We get into it about the fact that not many mentalists, do a good job with what they do, but don't take themselves too seriously. And he's got a hilarious comedy take. He's a true gentleman. I had a wonderful time just getting to know him. It's one of these things where I got a Facebook message from him. Something on the program spoke to him. And it just led to a great little friendship back and forth. And so I'm happy to call him my friend, and I'm happy to see all the work that he's doing. Check out his website. Go follow him. Go see what's happening. But there are some fantastic stories and some great nuggets for just surviving in entertainment and doing the thing you love for a living. So sit back, relax, enjoy my conversation with Curtis the Mentalist.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
Hey everybody, welcome to About to Break. I'm your host, Taylor Hughes, and I'm so excited to be sitting down through the power of the internet with my new buddy, Curtis Waltermire. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, Taylor. Thank you.
How
are you?
I'm really good. And I
Good.
say this way
great.
too often. I always say I'm very excited, but I am really excited. And I have to tell people this. A couple weeks ago had a little bit of a moment. It's a little over maybe 6 weeks ago now. And I posted a thing about it online, and you were like one of the first guys to reach out and send me a private message, and it was so encouraging. And I'm just so grateful, man, that there's good people in this business who not only care about others, but also the fact that it's just good to see that there's other people going through similar things or have gone through similar things. So I was like, man, and we've been talking since then on Facebook, and I thought, let's just do a podcast, man. Let's do it.
Well, that's great. I appreciate you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. It's so easy sometimes. It's just everyone wants to put their best foot forward, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. They say, I'm living the life. I'm living the dream. I'm out here booking, even if they're not. They want to make themselves look like they are. And but sometimes just one-to-one as other fellow entertainers, we need to say, hey, let's cut through the BS, and how are you doing, really? And the fact that you were being so vulnerable and publicly like that, it kind of shows me, it's part of what attracted me to what you do on the podcast. Is it's just kind of, and you're not limited to just magician. That's another thing that I will say attracted me a lot to what you were doing, is like, here's a guy connected in the entertainment world. He's a magician, but he looks outside of magic alone for inspiration, which is sometimes a problem in the magic community. You know, we're all trying to look to each other and be copycats of one another. And I mean, not deliberately, but, it goes on. And when I see someone that's out there not just trying to posture themselves in hopes of making things better, I have this whole personal thing on the whole fake it till you make it idea, which I don't take too seriously, but it's kind of along those lines. It's like, well, when you get there, are you going to keep faking it?
Right. Well, see,
once you're there, it's kind of a, when we look at each other, it's like, hey, let's talk about the things that, do you have something you need I could help you with? Do you have
buddy,
something I need that you can help me with, kind of thing? And let's cut through the faking it in front of each other. We know what the industry actually demands. And so when you were so vulnerable, I was like, that took a lot of guts. And I don't know if you took fire for it or were made fun of or whatever, but just as another guy out there making a living, doing this thing. And, the public side of you is one thing, but behind the scenes side is another. And I commended you for that. I thought that was really...
It was so encouraging to get your message. And, those things go through your mind like, I feel like I should share this. Because one of the challenges I had was when I was going through this panic attack and all this stuff, I didn't know what to expect because people don't talk about it. It's not like you hear, people say, oh, if your left arm goes numb, you're having a heart attack. But no one goes, oh, you might be having a panic attack if you're having these symptoms. And, so I was nervous. Is this going to affect my career if I say this? And finally I was just like, you know what? Everything I've been doing has been so like, what do you got to lose? And I've been just overwhelmed, man, by so many great messages, and yours was one of the most encouraging. So I do have to say this. You put a video out maybe a couple years ago on YouTube about this whole fake it till you make it thing. Can you give people an idea? And I'll put a link here so they can go ahead and click on that and watch the video. But can you talk a little bit about what that story is that led to that video?
Well, the basic idea of the whole thing was I was trying to come up with different ideas for a video log. I personally find it funny that a lot of guys start these things as though the rest of the world really gives a damn about their day thoughts and activities. I don't take myself very seriously, especially as a mentalist. By no means. I'm way more of a comedy guy than I am a serious mentalist. And so, but the idea was, I said, someone had told me, they're a friend of mine in the UK. I won't say who they are, but they said, just try for 30 days, like do a little video every day or something. Yeah. Just talking about your thoughts, things that are on your mind. And I kind of started doing that. And the video you're talking about was just one of those where I throw my camera up on my dashboard mount and aim it at my face and turn it on and just recorded my thoughts for something. I used to be a trainer many, many years ago, and I was always, and part of what I do is corporate speaking anyway. Yeah. And I trained, I had 35 of my own employees. I had a company, and I would always, try to relate stories to them that really mattered, not just in that whole success, motivational speaking nonsense of let me just give you something to inspire you, but something that really hit home. And I was thinking about the whole concept of fake it till you make it. That day, for some reason, someone had said it online. Maybe it was a Facebook post. I don't know. I just was driving actually to the Y. Something I do every day is I'm an avid swimmer. I work out, but I don't want to overstate that as though is it some big thing. But
is this like purely for physical health, or do you find it helps you mentally and just kind of?
I think it is a very good. I'll just say this: it's a good healthcare payment.
Yeah,
a gym membership, and I don't mean. I don't try to be Mr. Superfit, but I do it to stay healthy, and it's a nice break. You know how it is. When we're not running around on stage or schlepping stuff in and out, most of the time we're physically fairly idle. We're on a computer, we're on a phone, we're working at trying to make gigs and stuff. And so I break up my days for 2 hours every day. It's part of my routine. is I go downtown. It's where I can be around some people I know.
Yep.
Work out, and swimming is my main thing. I swim 3 or 4 miles a week just to keep, going. And I was headed there to swim, and I was thinking, I said, why not try one of these? So I started recording, and I recorded a bunch, way more than I ever actually put on YouTube.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was I just had that in mind. But getting to the chase is just the idea of fake it till you make it. I thought if you really take this to really think it through, the whole idea is absurd.
Right.
I understand that the real concept behind it is put your best foot forward. Don't show your hand. We've all said yes to the gigs we weren't really sure how we were going to do. That's part of it.
Right.
It's the whole, but if you really think it through, it's like the way stand-up comedians tell a joke. The rigorous logic that they use to create the joke, which creates the humor, is not really logic that works really in the real world a lot of times. What makes it funny is part of an element of truth, but that doesn't mean that's how life really works. The problem is when people start taking that sort of thing too seriously, and you go, dude, it was a joke. Yeah. Designed to make you laugh. It wasn't designed to form a philosophy of life.
Yep.
And so the concept being, I said, I just think it's a dangerous thing when you tell yourself, I'm just going to fake it till I make it. Then I think it sets a standard for some other things in your life, and to where you're not being honest with yourself.
Right.
And that was just all that was about. I was surprised even that you were bringing it up, because I think it was even watching those. My stats on them were terrible, and I quit recording them.
You know what though? I've been overwhelmed at how often you put something out there and you feel like it doesn't get the response from a numerical perspective, but then you have 1 or 2 or 3 people reach out and go, "Oh my goodness, that changed my life." And I feel, and that's part of why we do these conversations, is I feel like we can gain so much wisdom and experience from other people. There's that old saying of like, you either learn from your mistakes or you learn from the mistakes of others.
Right. Yes.
And when you shared that on that video, I was so challenged because you said basically you were put in a situation where everyone else was basically lying, faking like something had happened, and you stood up and you said, "No, that's not really what's going on." And in the end, it worked out. And one of the things you mentioned was that, a lot of people think they can fake it for a time period, and then someday they're just going to flip a switch and they're going to be honest with who they are, and they're going to be real and genuine. And
if you're referring to the classroom thing I was talking about, okay, yeah, I'd forgotten. Wasn't really sure what all I said in the video. I know it wasn't very long.
Yeah, no, it was a great story about you were in a situation where you almost could have failed a class if you didn't do this.
I'm often surprised at how people, even as an entertainer, but this is more, I know it's not really on the subject, but I'm surprised at how people go along with the crowd so much. And I was in a large class. In the nutshell, this class was a private school. The way the homework worked is if you didn't have homework assignments done, you could actually lose your entire class or semester. The rules were very strict.
That's incredible.
And take that whole thing over again. And when you sign up for it, unfortunately, you knew that it was rigorous, but it kind of challenged you to really dot your P's and Q's. Well, we had a special thing happen in a particular week where the man that was the founder of the school was lecturing, and when we showed up for the class one night, we were told it would be every night that week. Normally, the classes are a week apart. Right. So you have a week to get homework done. Well, the next night we came in, and during the course of a roll call, everyone was answering that they had the notes and everything done from the previous class, which was just the night before.
Yeah.
There were 300 students in this class. And I'm a W, so I'm at the back of the roll call,
So he's taking roll, and while he's taking roll, he's saying, "Let me know if you've done this assignment."
Yeah, there was a process for which we had to answer in the roll call when her name was called. It was kind of old fashioned in that sense. I mean, they wanted to make sure you're physically there, you had everything you needed, and everyone just started answering that they had finished this assignment. And I'm kind of looking around the room, and there's the whole staff. It's like a big thing where the whole college comes to a stop when this guy was in town.
Yeah.
And this was a college level class. Well, anyway, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm sure, did I drop the ball? Did I miss something? Because I had things going on. You know how it is sometimes when you're a little out of touch with something, and then you're not really sure whether you. Right. maybe I did make a mistake.
Oh yeah.
Maybe did I miss that this was due? Was I totally spacing? So it comes around to me, and I didn't have a choice. I just said that I did not have an assignment done, and I was told to leave. You not only do you lose it, you're forced to leave in front of the class.
Wow.
There's kind of this part of the humiliation was part of it. This was a very long time ago, by the way. I was way younger and stupider. But and then I got up, and it took one of the staff members going to the head of the college, "Sir, you didn't give an assignment."
Oh, wow.
He hasn't done anything wrong. I sit back down.
Yeah.
And there's just this collective rumble of what in the world just happened. Why did 250 other students lie about, and what's the consequences for that? And because a lot of them were posers and fakers, and they didn't want to be, I don't want to, and they knew that unless they went through and physically checked everyone's homework,
right,
which they probably were not likely to do, that they would get away with it. And it's a crazy school. And I don't really want to go into the hows and whys, but but that came to mind. I was thinking, this is part of that whole culture of, just don't let anybody know the real truth.
Oh yeah.
And don't tell anybody how behind the scenes of show business really is. That might discourage them.
and it happens in every industry and any organization. This temptation to just do what is easy and what everyone else is doing, and sometimes to your own detriment.
Yes,
it reminds me. I'm sure you've seen Darren Brown's. Well, when they released it on Netflix, it was called The Push. Have you seen it?
Yeah, and it was old by the time Netflix.
Right, it was from like 2015 or something. I forget what was the original name in London, but anyway, but it
wasn't The Push. I was thinking it still was The Push, but
maybe it was. I know that they. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking Miracle. Miracle was originally released as something else, I thought.
Maybe you're right. Yeah,
I don't know.
It was a faith healing. That was a faith healing one or something.
Yeah. So on The Push, didn't they do that old experiment where they brought people in and they just had people standing up and sitting down when they heard a bell with no explanation as to why they were doing it?
That was the start of the process for I think for the whole Pavlov thing.
Yeah,
of getting people to react to things and to eventually be susceptible to murder. Yeah,
right.
Which was,
and it's crazy to see something like that, and you go, how could that ever be possible? But like you're saying, we make these compromises constantly, And as performers, I've seen so many guys, and I am one that did this for many, many years. Is you are not genuine and real with who you are because you feel like it's going to prevent you from being part of the gang, or like my wife years ago.
It doesn't fit in, yeah, or whatever.
Oh man, I used to always be nervous around other performers, like to the point where I had a huge anxiety going into a green room with other guys at a comedy club. I just couldn't do it, and my wife one day sat me down, like literally sat me down. I was getting ready to go to the Magic Castle with some friends, and I was stressing out about it. And she said, if you ever just be yourself, you'll have everything you want. Like the best thing you have to offer is who you are. Why not just be you and realize that's why these people want to hang out with you in the first place, rather than trying to be who you think they want or who you think you should be,
Right. And what's funny about that is just last night, I watched an old interview of who was it? And because I was watching a few of them, and they remembered George Clooney when he was really young and said he was the goofiest, craziest. And they were working with him, 30 years ago, whenever it was, and said he was so crazy, but the only thing that kind of kept him going was the fact that he was good looking.
Okay.
And so they were saying like it was wrong how good looking the man is. And one day they said that wasn't his real self.
Huh.
That all this goofiness. And they said one day he came in and someone told him to just be himself and quit. And they pantomimed, he had some papers or something. And they went like this. He said, it just says your chart here says this. And he was and suddenly
right.
The magnetism of what we know now as George Clooney is the calm guy. Boom, his career completely exploded. And it all happened even off camera during just and then he realized, wow, I've been trying to affect what I want the world to see George Clooney to be. And it wasn't him; it was someone else that worked with him. But I just said, that's so true about even how we are. We want to be whether it's a clown or be taken to look a certain way,
right?
And I think the only way to find that out is by experimentation. It's funny that it often leads right back to being your own genuine self.
Oh yeah.
And being a kind of an exaggerated version of that in an entertainment sense.
Yeah, I mean, we talk, comedians talk all the time about finding your character on stage, which ultimately, unless you're doing some like Andy Kaufman-esque like wild thing, your character should be a heightened version of yourself. If you want your audience to connect with you. But magicians, and I'd love to talk about the differentiation between mentalist and magician for people, but magicians, I feel like, are notorious for, they just do, whoever wrote that routine. So if they're going to do a trick Michael Finney wrote or created, when they get on stage, when they do the rope trick, they're Michael Finney. And when they do the bowling ball trick, they're Kevin James. And when they do this, they're Lozander. You know what I mean? It's like,
you can almost hear it in the vocal and fluctuations and everything. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right out of the box. Let's just, and it's because there's a comfort, I think, in that. Like the way to make this effective is to tell this joke, say it this way. He got to laugh at this. And, I mean, even as much as, and I'm with you on that. And I believe, I know, but a lot of people they find fault with that.
Right.
I do too. If you've been doing it 20 years and you're still doing that, I think you got a problem.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with, when you first learn music, for example, I play guitar, piano, and sing, and I'm singing other people's songs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm
playing it the way they played it.
Yes.
Till I've learned it.
Yes.
And then make it my own. So, I mean, there's a degree, when you're first learning, you're going to say it the way Michael Finney did.
Right.
Well, I found out, I think recently, I share a birthday with. I didn't realize that. It was weird. Wait a minute. All this time, I didn't know. Well,
happy belated birthday, Michael Finney, because we were talking yesterday and your birthday was just yesterday.
Yeah. I think his was yesterday, and I just found that out. I don't want to pretend like I know Michael real well. I've met with him. I actually shared a stage with him one time.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I really like Michael. I have a great sense of humor. I like what he does for veterans. I like, just a great guy. And I just, and then when someone else was wishing him happy birthday, I said, wait a minute.
You're like, hold on.
Wait a minute, we're sharing a birthday.
That's awesome.
He's got about 14 years on me, but
right.
But anyway,
I think it's such a good point for people to get, though. Like what you said too, giving yourself that freedom of like, I don't have to be completely original to get started. I think every comic growing up learned how to do what they do by quoting Steve Martin or Jerry Seinfeld or George Carlin. Like, you learn these routines because when you're a kid, you don't know that there's any other way to do it, But there is that point where you go like, okay, in order to find myself, I've got to let go of these other ways of doing it,
It's funny you're saying that because when people ask me what got me started in magic, they're often confused by my answer when I tell them Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby got you started in magic?
Yeah. Now, not because Bill taught me a trick or any personal thing. I've never met him in my life. But when I was a kid, I owned all of the old records of him and his jokes about Fat Albert and Hofstra, playing football for Hofstra, and Why Is There Air, and all of those. And I loved stand-up comedy. I didn't really realize it so much then it wasn't like I wanted to be a comedian, but I loved stand-up comedy, and he was just one of the greats when I was younger. And of course, this was long before anyone knew what was happening.
Right. This goes back to our being, integrity on stage and off stage. But
right.
I'm
not singing his praises on a personal level by any means. If you can go back with me to that time, it was the thing where, and I had learned magic. I had learned it from library books and stuff like anybody else. And so I was doing magic tricks for friends and things. I really literally only learned tricks from a library book. It wasn't another magician that I could say. Doug Henning was on TV and was kind of an inspiration, and I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
My parents saw, but the real entertainment bug bit me when about 7th grade. I'd been doing magic, and I was kind of a shy kid, and I had taken an album, and we had this journalism class, and we were to write stories.
Yeah.
And the first week I wrote some cockamamie story about summer vacation like everyone else does, or the dog I bought.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And I don't even remember what that was. It was just some story. And I saw everyone getting up there telling their boring stories. And I just remember thinking, somebody needs to tell a funny story. So next week, I wrote out a very short, like 3 or 4 minute Bill Cosby bit. Just wrote it out of the story.
Oh, yeah.
Because we got to read them in front of the class. Part of the class was creating something, or it didn't even have to be original. They just said they wanted to encourage you to write, And so we're writing, and I get up and tell the class, and I get up in front of the class to read the story. I can't even hardly read the story because every 3 sentences, class is cracking up.
Right.
And I saw the power of the laughter, and like, who's the quiet kid reading this hilarious story?
Yeah.
They didn't know it was Bill Cosby. But I said, I sensed something here, and I started to add on to that, add in my own humor into it, and think of something weird or funny, and rewrite the stories. And we got to the point where people were like, when's Curtis going to read a story?
Yeah.
And the teacher was like not wanting me to be every week be requested to read, because only a few people got to read. You can't have a whole class. And so I just got kind of bitten by that whole entertainment bug. And magic worked into that over the years, and by the time I was in high school, I was doing paid shows and kind of combining the comedy and the silliness and still finding my way. But I wanted to be a serious magician and illusionist for a long time. But I guess go down that road another.
No, did you ever
that's
get
another story for another time. But yeah, it was comedy. It was Bill Cosby and the whole thing that he would do.
Yeah.
And I would see some of his stand up once in a while, like once we had cable TV came out. And you could see some things. But, it was stuff really outside of magic that got me wanting to be an entertainer. Magic was just part of it.
I was just recently noticing this because, doing comedy and magic together in the same show, I'm sure, there's moments of deep wonder that people experience, and then there's moments of hilarity. And what I found is so interesting that when the comedy is working, like the ultimate goal of comedy is you want them just uproariously laughing, just physically and verbally responding. And with magic, it's so funny because the stronger the effect is, the less response you get. Usually,
you know what I
mean? Like there are some effects
particularly that in mentalism. I'm sorry.
Right. No, I was gonna say, especially with what you do in mentalism, because they're, especially if you do if a lady floats up in the air and then the guy floats up in the air and he pulls the cloth down and she vanishes, you're going to get an audible response and applause. But if you decipher the name of a loved one someone merely thought of, you get that moment where they're just utterly silent because they don't know what to do. They're not really sure what this means that you know this. They can't figure out how you would know it,
Right. It can't just be a trick to them, and that's another topic, of course, and how to present it. I like to come to mentalism mostly from a comedic standpoint.
Okay, which is very rare for mentalists. I know very few that are doing not a serious act in the way of not funny, but like a legitimate mentalism act that have lots of humor. So that's a very unique take that you've presented.
Well, I think because I loved stand-up comedy, and the funny thing is, it wasn't that I was like the funniest. I wasn't a class clown growing up. I wasn't the funny guy. There was people I thought were a lot funnier than me, but there was something about being in front of people and doing things. It was like my way of connecting with people that I couldn't on a personal level. We all, as entertainers, we all have that sort of. We're the introvert, but put us in front of people, and somehow a switch turns on, and and we're able to, we feel more comfortable in a sense. Not that we're never nervous in front of a crowd, but we feel like it's like it's like an addiction. It's like a high you have to have or whatever, excuse me.
It is especially because most people, Seinfeld talks about it, but like number one fear of most people is death, and our number one fear is public speaking. Number two is death.
I love that joke.
Yeah. Yes. But that's why a lot of what you're bringing up, man, is like people don't get it. Like, how could you be introverted in a one-on-one and then get up on stage and talk to 1,000 people and be totally fine?
Right. And one of the kind of funny things I think about that today, and this is just my personal opinion, because of the internet, because of videos and online stuff, the younger people today are exposed to, they're used to seeing and being more inundated with performers, comedians.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's weird, but today it seems like the thing du jour is stand-up comedy. There's comedians are popping up everywhere you've never heard of, and they've got specials on the internet and on Netflix. And who is this guy now? And I'll be honest, there's a good portion of it, about 70% of it, I don't even think is funny. Mm-hmm. And it might be because of the age difference for me or whatever. But kind of what I'm seeing is I think a lot of young people think that because I can just somehow brush aside that fear and just get in front of people and act a little crazy, that somehow that kind of qualifies for entertainment. Yeah. And like, okay, overcoming the fear or having that thing is part of it. Right. But that isn't it in and of itself. And so you see a lot of people out there who are boisterous and cut ups and all of that. And they think, I was at a show a while back. I had a show at a movie theater a few months ago. Okay. And they brought in these comedians that were opening for me. Yeah. I was the feature act. Yeah. It was a weird setup by some guy out of Dallas who called me up and said, "Hey, we want you to come and do your 75-minute show, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have these comedians." And I mean, I did not know how this was going to go. Right. And so, but I listened to, for 45 minutes, these comedians, 3 different comedians went on. One did about 5 minutes. The featured act did like 10 or 15. The other act did almost half hour, something like that. Yeah. And the audiences, all of the laughter was basically complimentary. They were out of their element with the crowd. Right. This is my professional experience talking. Yeah. They did not know their audience. They came from a few hours away. Yep. They were in small town in southern Kansas, and they were ragging on everything that small town southern Kansas is all about. Unnecessarily. It would be one thing to just kind of have fun, but they were unnecessarily mocking this small town. Right. And, but on top of that is I'm sitting there with my wife who's videotaping me and helping me. And I said, these 3 people, they think, give them a microphone and they're somehow entertainers. Yeah. They've got this, I've got a microphone. The 2 lady comics that were there had no structure of jokes. They were just talking. Yeah. And and found out one of them started in comedy just 3 months prior. Wow. And this was a test gig, but they were expecting to be paid for it. Yeah. And the guy came up to me at the end of the night and gave me a lot more money for the gig than what I thought we had agreed to. Yeah. He said because he wasn't basically paying the comics because they were so bad. Oh, wow. And I'm not saying I'm for that, but what it blew my mind was just the way the gig was set up wasn't too great. But it was fun on my thing went well. But I was basically coming in after a train wreck by 3 other performers who just simply thought because I'm young and I'm just crazy, I'm somehow entertaining people. Yeah. When it was just like, what's the point? And people are clapping like, good. Maybe if we clap, they'll be done. Yeah, well, it's so bad. But I do feel like, and again, at the risk of sounding like 2 old guys criticizing the new way of doing things. Right. Yeah, years ago, there were a limited number of platforms. There was, a handful of TV shows, which is why years ago, if you were on the Tonight Show, the next day you were a star because there was 3 channels and that's all people watched, Right. But even, more recently, within the past 10, 15 years, you couldn't just get up, and even to this day, you can't just go up on stage at the Magic Castle without proving yourself. But anybody can create a platform online and can have the idea that just because eyes are on it, that it's good, And I think that, and I also feel like the other thing that's hurting comedy, and maybe not magic so much to this day, but years ago, a comedian would work on an act and they'd do that act for the 45 minutes to an hour. They do that for the rest of their life, and they would hone it and shape it and sharpen it. And so 15 minutes long. It could be 15 minutes.
And I think what's happening with a lot of comics now is the same thing we've seen happen for years with musicians and bands, is that sophomore album is awful because, their first album or their first TV spot, they've had 30 years, 40 years to put together. And then, a year later, they're going to release another hour. They haven't had any new experiences,
Right.
or all their experiences are about having done this other thing. So
right.
I'm personally trying to find that balance in between there, because I feel like too many magicians, magicians don't burn material like comics do. And
right.
So I'm trying to find that balance of not just doing the same thing because it works and because people haven't seen it. I think it'd be interesting if magicians had to burn material and start over and see what it.
Well, isn't that you're doing a thing out in LA, that aren't you? That's it come and do. I forget what it's called, but it's you have to come out and perform something or perform in front of an audience. And
we call it the Low Bar Variety Hour.
Low Bar Variety, yes.
And really, it's more of the whole point is to challenge us as performers to come up with something new. And I'm telling you, bro, like the last 2 months, it's been the night before the show, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. But every time we do it, I come up with a piece that I'm like, okay, there's something there. Like,
how are the audiences digging that, or how are they? They know that they're coming in about to maybe witness a train wreck.
Oh yeah. I mean,
part of the live of it all.
Well, first of all, it's a free show, so they're not losing any dough. And we pitch it as we're asking some of the best performers around to do stuff that they're not known for, stuff that's brand new. So
at least they have good chops. Yeah. You're not talking amateurs. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And so it's very different. I mean, LA has a lot of open mics that are just horrible to sit through, and which is why audiences don't come. And then, performers end up working for other comics who are ignoring them while they're writing down their set,
Right.
But it's been really fun. I'm enjoying that. But there is something about forcing yourself. Do you give yourself deadlines when it comes to like creative projects that you're working on? Have you?
Not real often. No, I always have things in the hopper, and I work on them as I'm inspired by them.
Yeah.
I try to be systematic about it. Like next week, I'm doing a charity event that I did last year, and they loved it so much that they're bringing in their bigger donors.
Yeah.
And they said, we've got some people that are really stepping up to the plate. And we want to really kind of schmooze them some more. And to be frank,
right.
And we think you're perfect for it. Just do you have something new?
Yeah.
Well, I did a 90-minute show last year.
Yeah.
That's a stand-up show, and it was about 230 people.
Wow. And, an hour and a half.
Yeah. Mentalism with comedy. Yeah. I mean, it's which people think. I had a hypnotist one time. He said, "Oh, you're full of blankety blankety blank. There's no way you keep people going for 90 minutes." And I'm like, I don't know where you've been. And I knew where he'd been. I mean, this is the man that had been around 30 some years. He's been on cruise ships. He's like a mentalist, 90 minutes, 10 minutes, I'm asleep at a mentalism show. I said, well, don't judge the rest of us by what you're doing.
Right.
And besides, I'm not a serious mentalist. It's not the kind of thing you're thinking where I'm just being real cerebral.
Which is special because, in a serious mentalism show, it's very hard to not have it be about the performer. And look what this guy can do that you can't do. And, and after a while, anyone's going to get sick of that. But because
no matter how good it is. Yeah.
And because you're adding comedy in, then it becomes less about look what I can do, but it becomes more about the situation, right? And what are we experiencing together? And you can shift some of that energy onto the audience.
Right. Actually, right. And so, but like with this gig, the thing that was happening was they said, but do you have anything new? I mean, we don't mind seeing the same type of show. They just didn't know how often I said, and the truth was at the time they called me it was about 4 or 5 months ago. And I said, yeah, I said, you'll see some things that are staples in my act that I like to do.
Right.
Unless I really can't do it again. And so what it wound up being was I had about 45 minutes of newer material, which is older revived material that I'm reviving. And one is a lie detector, human lie detector thing, you know, and a few other things that I know, okay, that act's 15 minutes. This is about 10. And, and I said, but you're going to see some stuff like I always close with the blindfolded mind reading bit.
Right.
Which can be anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Depending on how I play it, I can get a feel of the audience. So, that's it. So I know I'm probably going to do that. I do have an alternate that if I don't do that, but at the time though, I was a little I wasn't planning on throwing this all together. But yeah, I had a deadline for material to go, well, you need to at least have this new stuff. So in the last couple of months, I've been introducing it into other shows, bits and pieces, so that it's not cold come August 18th when I'm doing the gig for these people. Because it's kind of, this is kind of, you're talking about the sophomore album. This is kind of like, I made a great first appearance. They like it so much, now I've got to step up my game. And I don't want to disappoint. And I'm not afraid that I will so much, but I do want to be true and say, I want to give them some of the stuff that I know works, that they probably don't mind seeing again. I mean, who goes to a concert to see hear all new songs? Right. You go to see Kenny Chesney or whoever, Marilyn Manson, because you want to hear that song.
I had a friend recently who came back and did a show that he had done before, and so he purposely did new stuff, and then he had guests come up that were so bummed that he didn't do certain routines because they're like, we brought our cousins so they would see you do the thing, and you didn't do it. So yeah, I think you're right.
It's a hard thing to know what to do because there's that we've seen that before attitude on one hand, right? We've seen that, and then there's you didn't do the bit with the yeah. So it's maybe I should send out a poll and go, have people come back. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think with mentalism, you have a little bit more freedom than with magic because you could do a similar routine, but the information's going to be different, so it's going to be fresh and new based on the audience. Whereas if you're doing an appearing goldfish bowl, they know what's going to happen before you take the cloth away if they've seen it.
Right.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the About to Break podcast. 3 quick ways that you can help us out here at About to Break. The first one is to go on iTunes and leave us a review. If you enjoy the program, please leave us a 5-star review. Big thank you to everyone who's already done that. If you haven't yet, please jump over to iTunes. You'll need your iTunes account information. But you can click on the podcast, leave us a 5-star review. Just leave us a 1 or 2 sentence little blurb there. Let people know what you like about it. That helps us out huge. Second way you can help us at About to Break is by becoming a producer. Our goal is to have 1,000 people giving at least $1 a month to help offset the cost of producing these shows. And it does take time. And it is a passion project. I will continue putting these out for free because I think it's a helpful conversation. But anything you can do to help us out by producing the show would be awesome. Go over to abouttobreakpodcast.com, click on Become a Producer, and see what that's all about. Last thing that you can do, and this one is also a real simple way of making a difference, is just sharing the podcast. All right, when you see it out there on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, go ahead and follow along and then share it with your friends. Let someone else know how much you liked it because it sure does make a difference. All right, back to the program. Talking about to break, you had a very interesting experience when it came to America's Got Talent.
Yeah. Kind of sometimes one of my jokes is that I'm introduced as the most amazing, or how do I say it? The famous mentalist you've never heard of, and, or entertainer, most famous. It's a line I sometimes throw if someone's introducing me, and they will say that. Anymore, I use a completely pre-recorded introduction to my shows. And part of that stemmed from what happened with America's Got Talent, and there was one of the things when I went back performing full time many years ago. I was a part-time professional for years, and like a lot of us. And one of the things I had a plan to do was get on AGT. Yeah. This was back when it was more early, but I was developing things over the years, and I've never really liked the show.
Right.
I get it. It's entertaining. I know it's contrived.
Right.
And so, but I didn't realize just the full effect of it until one day, when one of the things I did is that everything was working just by design.
Yeah.
I knew that if you're going to be on there, you have to do something like ridiculous,
spectacular, something that's unforgettable. Yeah.
Yeah. But then you're in the quandary of how do you top spectacular again and again and again.
Right.
And keep it interesting. And, So I was doing a charity event fundraiser for the Kansas Honor Flight. 2013, I was driving blindfolded, and I did a version. I was practicing. I wanted to do not just a typical put on a blindfold and drive. I wanted to step it up. And Devin Knight, I've never met Devin, but I know who he is and what he's done and about his career a little bit. And he had a blindfolded car that he did years ago, and he put out a manuscript on it. And I had a copy of that manuscript. Where basically you're blindfolded, but the windows are also covered with like newspaper.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, this is crazy. Well, the funny thing about it, I studied his method, and I was gutsy, and it basically a blindfold drive does take a lot of guts mostly.
Right.
You know, and so, but I'm a pretty experienced driver. I've had a CDL for 30 years. I've driven semi trucks and buses and all kinds of things. And so I'm pretty comfortable in the car. And I had a car at the time. It was a Scion, the little extra little square ones.
Yep.
And I discovered something in the driving of in practicing this method that wasn't in the manuscript that created my own new method.
Oh, wow.
And I was so excited. My wife couldn't believe what she was seeing. She stood out in the parking lot. Well, we filmed an episode of it with a TV reporter in a grocery store parking lot, me driving blindfolded in a grocery store parking lot with the windows covered, a news reporter in the car for a local news station. I got the
reporter just freaking out.
Yeah. Well, no, she wasn't going crazy or anything because I made sure to go very slow.
Right.
And I did that, and I sent it off to America's Got Talent, and it was like, it was because it was done by local news. We put up some cones, police sectioned off. I mean, we made it safe. I even put people in the parking lot blindfolded standing there that I was going to drive around to increase the danger, like human pinball machine, you know, like, can I avoid them?
Yeah.
And it went nowhere. No views. Nobody cared. Nothing. So a year or two later, I was doing this for a charity event. You know, it wasn't a big paying thing, but we had a good crowd live. And but
in your mind, you're not expecting this is going to lead to something else. This is just a thing you're doing for this.
When the opportunity came to raise money for a cause I believed in, and I had a friend that had a local TV show about hot rods. It's called Street Rodding American Style.
Yeah.
He said, I would love to film one of your blindfold drives next time you're doing one.
Okay.
And then one day he called me and said, you know, the Honor Flight's doing a thing. We could film it live.
Right.
But he's like, dude, I said, yeah, but we're talking one take. And he said, how do you want to set it up? So I got to set it up how I want it.
Oh, perfect.
And they set up the chorus. I didn't have anything to do with the chorus, but we went through this whole deal of they made a whole episode out of it where it was me going around to car shows asking to borrow a car because I wanted to do a hot rod, and we set this whole neat thing up, and we finally got the hot rod. We got the young kid that had restored it, him and his dad. And, you know, of course, I'm not touching or gimmicking the car in any way. It's nothing like that. Set it up. We had the local press there. We had we had a live audience. And I thought, this will be the thing that I send to America's Got Talent. They didn't even respond to the last time I did it.
Yeah.
I'll just put this up. Well, once again, it was sensational. They had to edit it. I actually did 2 or 3 laps.
Yep.
But they did to make it look like one lap, and, you know, but it was kind of weird because you can't really get much of a crowd reaction because they didn't really focus on the crowd.
Right.
So you get a few crowd shots, but not really. If you watch the video, it's on YouTube. World's Most Amazing Blindfold Drive, you know. But so I put it up on the internet and heard nothing, got no response out of AGT from anything I sent them. Well, I don't know how long it was, but one day I'm in Illinois. I had been there to visit family in a gig and an old friend I worked for, and I got parking my car, and I get a call, and it's the producer of America's Got Talent. Wanted to know if I wanted to be on the show. They somehow still, when I thought I'd given up hope, they had seen the video of me zipping around the cones and for the Kansas Honor Flight, and wanted to know if I wanted to do that on the show. And I wasn't sure at that point. I actually did.
Okay.
And I started calling friends of mine, like Mark Salem has been a tremendous help to me over the years. You know, I've met Mark on different occasions, and we talk on the phone once in a while. And just a very good friend, you know, a good person to talk to. And he gave me some insights and some ideas, some brilliant ideas for upcoming things to do on the show.
Yeah.
I agreed to go out and do it, even after talking to friends who gave me a lot of warnings. They, it's like, you're already a professional. If they turn this on you, can you suffer, if they make you look like an idiot, in other words, which they can do.
Right. It's all in the editing.
It's all in the edit. Yeah. Then, can you survive that? And I said, I think so, because in my opinion, I started asking him things like, who won it 2 years ago?
Right, exactly.
Who was the guy that sucked the most on America's Got Talent 2 years ago? You don't remember that.
No.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
It's very short-lived. The fame's short-lived and the humiliation short-lived. Oh, sure, somebody's going to find the video later, years later.
Yeah.
But is it the people that hired me? I just kind of didn't think it mattered. So I said, I don't see what I have to lose.
Yeah.
And a nice shot in the arm for publicity would be great. I think it would be fun. My family would sure as hell get a kick out of it.
Totally.
It was on. America's Got, talent. To some people, it's a stamp of legitimacy. If you're on there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I decided I would do it, even though I was a little nervous how they were going to set me up. I laid out everything that needed to be done. I said, you need to do it during the day. They wanted an outline, so I'm typing up this stuff for them. I gave them like a writer of sorts.
Yeah.
It need to be done during the day. Make it a closed course.
Yep.
Don't do it on the streets. If you want to make it safe, we can still do this. Put people in the parking lot. I had these ideas, just like in the other one, where I drove around people in the parking lot, and do it. And I said, and wrap it with a newspaper. I told them the type of cars that are better than others, and they said, okay, well, you can choose your route. Next thing you know, they're calling me back and they're saying you can choose your route. I said, route?
Yeah.
And they said, well, we might not be doing it in a parking lot, and we're wondering if we do it through the streets, if you want to do it. So it was and I'm looking at Hollywood and Highland. I'm looking at that thing and I'm going, okay, I can just, so I said, well, we could do this or this, I guess. But I said, I'm serious. So I get there, Taylor, the thing was, long and short is when I got there, they agreed said, okay, we'll do whatever you need because we want this to work and we want it to be safe. You know? I get there, they do everything else.
Really?
You're going to do it at night. You're going to do it on streets of Hollywood. You're going to do it with the judges in the car, which was part of the idea anyway. And it had to be in a convertible, in this huge boat of a car, huge car. It was a Cadillac Eldorado convertible, a 77, I think, a big, beautiful red. And the car was crap. I was supposed to, and the car was junk. It looked pretty on the outside. It was a Hollywood prop car.
But it didn't drive well.
The kind that you rent from these companies to put in shows that are functional but look nice. Yeah, and so... Oh my God. And so, but the long and short of the story is I did the drive, scared the crap out of the judges. They thought it was great. Now, I will say that of all the judges, the nicest person in the whole, to me, was Howard Stern.
Wow.
He absolutely went crazy and loved it. He thought it was great. He even said, I smell an Emmy Award. This is fun, sensational stuff. I'm swerving and throwing them around in the car and riding over curbs. That's what they wanted. They didn't want, because at first they said, you're driving too perfect. We need you to, drive a little. But the whole logistics behind how that was done, it took well over an hour. It's almost an hour and a half to film it.
Wow. So
the whole 90-second audition thing was out the window.
Right.
That was my opening audition was, let's go outside the theater and get in a car. And it was filmed about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
Wow.
Which I was terrified of. I had only driven blindfolded in the dark one time, and it scared me because I don't want to get into methods, but there's a lot more danger.
Oh yeah,
driving at night when you can see than especially when you're blindfolded.
Right.
They loved it. They voted me through, and I don't think I'm saying anything too litigious here, for lack of a better word, but they vote a lot of people through that never ever make it on the show.
Right.
And,
oh yeah.
They just because they want to have that to pick from. They voted me through. A big fanfare. We had a live crowd outside, kids and families.
Oh yeah.
It was a big deal. And I am walking on a high. I'll admit, standing there talking to Howard, I just spent 10, 15 minutes talking one-on-one with Howard Stern.
Yeah.
After I drove him through Hollywood blindfolded for an hour and a half.
That's amazing.
Well, one thing I will back up a bit. They almost canceled on me.
Okay.
And this is where I was really upset at them. I was warned that they would lean hard on the methods.
Right.
Especially for acts they consider dangerous. They want to know that there's a trick and that it's safe.
Right.
And so, it's TV. It's just supposed to look dangerous. Well, and of course, blindfold driving actually is. You know that.
Right.
And so, they came to me and said, "Oh, by the way, we need to know how it's done. We need to know the method." 2 hours before we were scheduled to actually film.
Yeah.
Roll the cameras. They were already setting stuff up outside, and I was in the green room, and producer said, "We need you." And we went out to where the car was and said, "You need to tell us how it works." And one of the reasons I was warned about that by 2 or 3 of my friends that had been on the show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I won't say who they are, but they had been on the show, and one of them made it a long ways and had a great run.
Yep.
But they had instances where things were looking bad, and they somehow salvaged it. And so he said, "You don't want them to. They'll lean on you. They could completely take it from you and give it to someone else.
Yeah.
Once they know the method." And I said, "Well, that's reason enough. I mean, plus Chris Kenner, I knew was their consultant at the time. I don't know if he still is for Magic." And I thought, well, why don't they just ask him? I mean, if he can tell them, they don't need me.
Right.
And part of the thing was, and I don't want to get too ahead of this, but I think I just didn't fit their demographic. I was older. I wasn't young, like a 20-something up-and-comer. I was an established kind of guy who was in his middle age. And so, and I was trying to dress a little younger and play that up a little bit. But so what happened was they were demanding to know how the trick was done.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was at a crossroads because the producer, I said, "I'm sorry, I can't do that."
Right.
I mean, you called me. She said, "Well, the insurance people need to know. Police need to know for safety reasons." And blah, 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 blah. And I knew that was all part of the ruse. And I just said, "I tell you what, why don't you ask Chris Kenner? If he'll tell you, fine. But if he won't." So she left and came back about 30 minutes later and said, "Curtis, we can't get a hold of Chris," or whatever she said. She goes, "We really need to know." I said, "Give me the damn roll of duct tape."
Yeah.
And I had the coins in my pocket. She had my duct tape. And I just started taking the tape, and I said, and I had her put on a duct tape blindfold.
Yeah.
Just as I would do it in my act. And she's standing 3 feet away from me.
Yeah.
And she's a little Indian lady. She was sweet as could be, but she just had a job to do, And she said, "Now what?" And I said, I pointed to a room. I said, point to an area anywhere. And she pointed, and I said, and without even turning my head, I'm going, "There's a man over there wearing a red sport coat and blah, 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 talking on his cell phone. He's got short hair." And I started describing things. I said, that sign on the wall says this, blah, blah, how many fingers am I holding up? I just went through a litany of goofy things.
Yeah.
She says, "You can see with that thing on?" I said, "I never said I could see, but I can tell you what's going on around me. And you just put this on yourself and you know that the blindfold is on." And she's like, "That is freaking crazy." Yeah. And that's just what she said to me. "That is freaking crazy. I'm standing right here. There's no way you can see that." And I peeled it off and I said, "So there's no way I can drive an automobile either, I guess, right?" And she said, "Well, 'cause if we don't do something, we can't go on with the shoot." I said, "You mean you brought me all the way out here
right
to do all of this for me to go if I don't tell you how? You've seen me do it. You've seen videos do it. This is insane." And so she went back and she came. She said, she came back later and said, "I told them that I tested you and you passed the test," and they were happy with that.
Wow.
So anyway,
good for you for sticking by your guns, though.
So I didn't have to divulge, a trade secret that's very old.
Right. Well,
and I did tell her later. I said, "It's not my secret to tell."
Yes.
It's not my secret to tell. It's why I said if Chris Kenner, and I knew he wasn't, even if they did call him. I don't know if they did or not. But the fact that I named him, I think, surprised him because they thought I was a nobody.
Yeah.
I didn't just walk down the street from the Magic Castle and come in and do an audition.
Yeah.
And so they just said, "Oh, okay." And I've only met Chris once or twice, and it's been in passing. It's, and so, but anyway, so I did the deal and all the fanfare. One of the upcoming things I was going to do was a version of Maurice Vogel's Cheating the Gallows. And I was going to make I'm from Kansas. What they loved about me was guy from Kansas drives classic cars.
Right.
rods or what while blindfolded. Isn't that just something that America would love?
Right.
It's like monster truck rallies or whatever.
Right.
And I went in there I didn't go in there in a suit and tie and all of that. I went in there the casual guy, just happens to do this crazy thing. And so I thought what I'd do is do a version of it. And I said, we're going to build a gallows and have like a Western theme hanging. I had this whole routine where even the coffin's at the bottom.
Wow.
Somehow predict which one of the ropes, if you're familiar with the routine.
Yeah.
Russian roulette with hangman's ropes. I thought it would be a great thing for TV. And they loved that idea. And had I ever performed that before? No, not like that. But I had done the routine.
Yeah.
I had the ropes. I, had my own gallows, but I said we could do this up for TV. But, of course, then that's money out of
their pocket.
Yeah. And so, but there was 3 or 4 other ideas like that, things I said I could do that they bought into as sensational and great for television. So, and that was part of the sell. Not only we're going to do the drive, but we had this other stuff to film.
Yeah.
And so they called me like 2 weeks before the show was to air on, which I think at the time was May 27th.
Yeah.
And said, we're sorry. Well, they didn't call me. They emailed me. And then I tried to call. They just said, we've decided to pull it from the show after all. And Smoothini, Thomas Delacruz, is the one they we were there the same day.
Yeah.
And, of course, I don't resent Thomas by any means for anything like this, but what do they want? They want SpongeBob tricks and cards. Yeah. They didn't even want the act that he was originally going to do. They changed it the day he was there. They said, no, we won't. Yeah. And so it was just one of those quirky things where that was what they wanted more than the big, they just spent a ton of money they flew me out there.
Right. Well, the cost to have the police there and to block off the road and
permits and
all that stuff.
So when I left Hollywood after I was there 3 days to film that stunt. I was left, of course, with the impression that
you're going to be on the show.
Was great. Oh, I never did finish the final part. This is so much fun. When the drive was done, they said, we're one more thing. And I had noticed these limousines that were these big SUVs. They were Lincoln Navigators pulling up. Howard Stern got in one, couple of blondes, whatever, and he leaves, and Heidi Klum did the same thing. And there was 3 of them, and they went, well, Howie Mandel was lingering around, chatting with a few people.
Yeah.
And the producer, who didn't smile the entire 3 days I was there, was grinning ear to ear at this point. She came, even after the drive was over, she just said, that was like so sensational, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
We got great footage and blah, blah, blah. And so she said, but we have one more thing. And she's pulling the duct tape off, like she's peeling it off. I said, what? She goes, we want you to put this back on. I said, I just had it on my face for an hour and a half.
Right.
Right. Peeled it off. I'm like, got marks on my face.
Yeah.
And she said, we have an idea. Howie Mandel's limousine is late getting here. And of course, it didn't take a mind reader. I said, and you want me to get a shot of me driving off as his chauffeur?
Yeah.
Blindfolded, right? She goes, exactly. Partially because his words during the whole thing, what did you think in the voting process, were, that scared me to death. I never want to do that again. But it was sensational. You're amazing. Blah.
Yeah.
And so they said, we want to get a shot of you, and you're going to put this on.
Yeah.
The limousine's going to pull up. He's going to say goodnight to the cameras from America's Got Talent, open his back door, look over his shoulder, and I'm going to turn around with the cheesy grin, the blindfold.
Oh, yeah.
So I could see it, and I said, okay, great. I said, but you still got a crowd out here.
Right.
We need to put this blind, because everyone's still watching me. I mean,
right.
The live people, so the public is lingering.
Yeah.
And so we had to go through a deal where Nick put the blindfold back on me. He walked me to just to make sure it was safe. I got in. They wouldn't let me back the truck up, that they would let me pull it forward. So I would pull forward and get a shot of me pulling forward, the door opening, him saying goodnight. We shot that 5 times.
Really?
Him looking at me going, oh no. And the next shot, they did that several times, but the next shot was of me actually driving past the Dolby Theater with him hanging out the back window screaming for help.
Like, get me out of here.
Yeah. And we did that, like 5 shots of that, like, do over, okay, bring it back here. And they're like, and I'm thinking this is going to be huge. You know,
Yeah, yeah, this is gold.
Great spot. And and
they never aired any of it.
Never aired it. Jeez. I don't have any of the footage. I have a couple of pictures of me sitting in the car waiting to pull out because they had the camera truck was a big thing in front of me with several cameras, GoPros everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was a great stunt. I had a lot of fun. The people were nice. Yeah. They fed us well. You know, I got to meet some people there in the process. You know, none of that I resent, but the thing that was so devastating was it was the letdown of, okay, this isn't going to happen after all. And basically you can't talk about it.
Right.
And basically so all of my family, they pump you up to say, contact your family, tell them to be on Facebook and all of that. I had contacted family was reaching out to me that I hadn't heard from in 20 years, you know, going, I've heard you're going to be on this show. And I'm going, well, I filmed a stunt. We wait and see.
Yeah. But
you're kind of encouraged to tell them to watch.
Right.
You can't tell them any specific things. And so from a legal standpoint, I couldn't say much. And then, when they said it's not going to air, and by the way, you kind of have to, you sign a 60-page confidentiality agreement, you know.
Right.
And so, and that's a big, thick, you know, don't say anything or else kind of document. And, and I've been true to that. You can't use it to promote. You do. And I don't. What the big letdown was is that the fact that I couldn't really explain to anyone why. My uncle, you know, people were contacting me. I've been watching this dumb show for weeks.
Right.
When are you going to be on it? I had to just tell them, well, they cut it from the show. Why? And of course, a lot of people, ostensibly what they think took place is, well, you weren't good enough and they just didn't want to put you on the show. And you can't spend time trying to worry about what people think of you after that, because it's and one friend of mine kept it. He was really great, because for a while I struggled with that. I thought, man, I've been doing this a long time. I thought I killed it. Yeah. And to, you know, the largest talent show in the world, televised, and how did they not choose even? And the truth is, I only wanted one spot. I didn't care about winning the show. Oh yeah. I didn't care about all the weeks. If I had one good appearance and it was great, that's really all I cared about. Right. I had no illusions of winning, when you find out that the $1 million is paid over 40 years, you just don't get real excited. Right. And I'm saying that there, if you read the credits at the end of the show, it says that. Oh yeah. But no one ever pays attention to, you know, how that amounts to about $25,000 a year in payment, which is, but you're not getting rich instantly, even if you win the damn show. Right. So, but it was a great experience and fun, and a tremendous disappointment when all signs were green, you know, all the signals were green, and then, you know, and I just kept plugging along doing my thing, but I had actually struggled because I put a lot of gigs off and eggs in one basket to prepare for that. Yeah. Get ready. I didn't just not do gigs getting ready. I was testing other material, but when it was like, you kind of like coming back from war, if you'll pardon the analogy. I mean, I'm a soldier. It's nothing like war, but you've lived in an environment where things are so intense and you're back to, okay, now what do I do? Yes. I'm going to go do my next 50-person gig in a hotel room, banquet facility for people that are just going to kind of, you know, and then feel motivated to do it. I wasn't very motivated for about 3 months. Yeah. I'd go to every gig going, you know, the show was on and things are happening and people are contacting me and I'm trying to stay positive. So, and that's a thing that, it's just how TV is. It chews you up and spits you out, you know, and it isn't because you've done anything wrong. Right. It's because you're great, but you're not what we want right now. Right. That's really the answer. And,
you know, casting in general, I think the sooner artists understand that it has nothing to do with you. It really doesn't. There is a project that's being made, and every episode of America's Got Talent is being cast like a movie. And, you know, I have so many friends who are actors, who are working actors, and the game changer for them was when they realized that it's not a personal thing. It really is. If you look like the person they have in their head and you walk in the room, you're going to get the gig. And in
most cases, especially if it's an established person, or true story, or if the idea that's in their head of a character that they're wanting physically. And it don't even have to be. I've seen a lot of people that look the part that are not the best actors.
Right.
And it didn't seem to matter, which is unfortunate, right? You're right. It doesn't. Well, it's never about us anyway, really. I mean, we're just lucky. We're just lucky if we kind of fit the size of the hole that they're trying to find a peg for.
Right.
Yeah,
that's so good, man. I do.
Now, how much is that? Where do you control it, though? That's my question. Is where do you go? That's out of my control, but I need to do what I can to control to be ready to be fit in that hole as a peg. If you'll pardon the peg.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great question. I think that's kind of comes full circle back to the question of honesty. And are you being real with who you are? I mean, for years I wanted to be an illusionist. I've owned 72 different illusions, and that's not an exaggerated number. I'm a dork. I'm a total magic nerd.
We're talking like box illusions,
like large scale, levitations and sawing in halves and
Super X's and
6
whatever.
Different sub trunks throughout my career. And
I've still got a sub trunk. You want one?
No, I don't, buddy.
Custom built by me.
But I mean, it took me forever to get to the point where I was just like, I keep trying to cast myself in a role that is not something someone wants to see me in. And yet it took me forever to realize I was a storyteller and that comedy and storytelling were the biggest asset I can bring to magic. And since that, and it's only been like a year and a half, 2 years since I've realized that, thanks mostly to my wife.
Really?
But since then it's been opportunity after opportunity. It's not like there's no challenges, as everyone who listens to this knows, but I think, if you keep going out for a role for a certain type and you're not getting booked, maybe you're not going out for the type of roles you should be doing.
Right.
There's I think even like, Rodney Dangerfield is probably a perfect example of this. He tried comedy for years and never got anywhere. And then went and sold aluminum siding for like 17 years while he had kids. And then I think he was 47 when he finally came up with this character of no respect. And all of a sudden he's working like crazy.
Right. That hook that the whole world could relate to.
Right.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild. They're like, you mean actors who never booked anything when they were young, but they just stuck with it. And now all of a sudden, now that they're in this zone of like, they play the dad, everyone wants to see them as a dad. I just think as performers too, are we being real with who we are? Or are we still trying to emulate someone else? And that's why we're not getting opportunities,
Right. There's a fella, performer out there that I think used to, we kind of compared. I would sometimes find myself comparing myself to mentally. Yeah. My wife and I were talking one night, and this has been many, many years ago. And and I've tried every kind of aspect of it all. I didn't own a bunch of illusions, but I did some illusions when I was younger.
Yeah.
I've tried different aspects of magic professionally and non-professionally over the years. But I said, the thing is, and there was some online chatter that went on that people were comparing me to somebody else. And like I said, it's been a long time ago, but I said, there's no comparison. And the reason is this person is a single young person. Mm-hmm. I'm twice their age. Mm. We were kind of working in the same market, and that's just what brought it up. And I'm not, this is not a negative thing by any means, but I said, I've raised 2 kids. I'm a grandfather.
Yeah.
I've owned a multi-million-dollar business before.
Right.
I've done things my sense of humor. I don't tell the jokes and perform the way this guy does.
Right.
Because he's 20-something and he's this.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm this and it's me over here. And so if you've ever been to a gig where another magician's been hired, you can get that sometimes, like, we hired so-and-so last year, but you were so much better. But some will say, we hired this guy, you tried you, and you find out they kind of liked the other guy more for whatever reason. Now, I can't remember getting that much, but I've had the occasional thing where what they were really looking for was something more like a magician than kind of what I do.
Yeah.
And anymore when people get gigs for me. I mean, if I get involved, if my wife's not handling the booking or whatever, I'll know when I'm not a fit for a show. I'm like, I'm sorry, but my act really kind of doesn't fit that. So I save them the trouble. Why go there just because you need the money and try to make it work when you know my act isn't a fit for that sort of thing.
Well, and we've all done it. We've all taken the gig because of the money, and then you get there and you're miserable, and you know that. And now, I mean, I'm happy to say that I'm honest with myself and with the client, and I can't tell you how many friends I book, and I say this is for them. Like this is their gig.
I'm not your man. This is your. This girl's got a better act, or this guy's got a better act, and fits, and they're happy to get the gig.
Yep.
Doesn't happen a lot, but it has happened. But to me, it's that part of being true to yourself, like you're talking about, and realizing it's not. We can't please everybody all the time. We try to want to be all things to all people as entertainers. When you're not famous, you're out there struggling to get gigs. It's easy to just want to take whatever falls in your lap. And, I don't know. It's just there's a lot of ways to go with that. Sometimes it takes some time. I've been doing this since the mid '80s, and you just kind of have to realize that the headaches are not worth. The money. I'd rather do without the check and have my sanity.
See,
and, be controlling. Building the life I want as an entertainer, doing the things I want, the type of gigs I want, even if it means saying no to things that I'm not sure I should have said no to.
That's so good, man. I know. I mean, we're at an hour and 20 already. Can you believe that?
You're kidding me.
No, we've got an hour and 20 minutes.
You punched a button and
No, I'm not saying that like we've gone too long. I think it's amazing. I feel like we could talk for another 2 hours without even thinking about it. But I do want to.
I really don't want to mow my grass, but yeah.
I do. Before we wrap, though, I do want to ask, because what you were just talking about with like living the type of life you want to live and saying no, sometimes saying no to the money. And I know that, you and I have talked. You've had several different careers and owned a multi-million-dollar business, and a lot of people would hear that and go, why are you doing full-time entertainment? What would you say if someone asked you that question?
Well, and even the way you just stated it, it's because there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that are missing there. They don't understand. That's a synopsis, but it's not an accurate representation of the whole picture. Of course, I didn't just foolishly throw away millions of dollars and decide to be a magician, but that's the way it kind of sounds. That was an experience and a stepping stone in my life. Took place over about 5-6 years. I will never do it over again.
Sorry, not to interrupt, but to give a little context here, I'm not saying you foolishly threw it away, but someone who has the ability in the business world to create something has the ability to create it again. And so that's the question, is why not just go and make another business and make millions of dollars? What was it that caused you to choose magic when you have the option to choose these other things, or to say, I'm going to be a mentalist, I'm going to be a full-time performer? What is it that compelled you to do that over, something else that maybe?
Well, I was in a construction contracting business. That's where I made the business out in Seattle, Washington for many years, where I lived a long time. And, but that was purely mercenary. I only did that for the money. I didn't do it because I enjoyed it. I didn't do it because I loved construction. Did I learn a lot of skills and trades and all of that? Yes. And I learned a lot about management. It was a crash course. Never done it before. We did it, and it turned out to be hugely successful.
Yeah.
That was a very growing area of the country at the time, that business. And I wasn't performing those years. I'd laid down a lot of that, because my family was young, and we made it work, and wound up one of our partners. We lost the business because of some crap he did. And so it was a big legal battle.
Yeah.
So, again, learned a lot there, but walked away with nothing when it was all said and done, and started over again. Yeah. So, and that's a synopsis. That's not even the whole story, but my heart was never in it.
Yeah.
We did it, and we were really good at it. I mean, we were really good, and that's not bragging. It's customers were coming to us going, my God, we've hated other contractors that do what you do, and you guys come in, and we weren't the cheapest. And so there was that was the lesson that I took with me even going back into magic again.
Right. Yeah.
Which is that going in and lowballing and being cheap is not, you have to have a value, and you price it at that value. And if people faint, it doesn't matter, because someone knows the value of a quality product, and a quality product is a quality act. And so, it was the love for going back to my first love, if you pardon the saying. I just decided, life's too short to be constantly chasing the dollar.
Yep.
They say money can't buy happiness. It can rent it a long time. Ha ha ha. Lack of money can make you very unhappy, you know. But I think what it came down to is I had to decide for myself. I had to not just look at myself as a performer and entertainer. What kind of life am I trying to build? What is my goal for, if you've been asked a question before, I'm sure, tell us what your perfect entertainment business would be.
Right.
What kind of gigs would you be doing? What would you be happy?
Yeah.
How much time away from home? How many flights? All of that. And actually come up with a pattern and a number and say, this is what I want. Yeah. And when you even if you're not attaining that, when you say, I want to do the low-hanging fruit for me in my area of the country, in the Midwest, is the corporate banquet gigs.
Yeah.
It's the low-hanging fruit. The key is, how do you get to all of those people? Well, that's a different story.
Right.
Mailing, internet, whatever you do. And so those the type, if you want to do the big theater gigs and you want to be in New York, guess what? You've got to work to do those things.
Right.
So you have to answer that for yourself. What are you happy doing? Do you can you survive on nothing? Are you a minimalist? Are you married? Where are you at? I'm married. I have 2 grown children. My oldest will be 27 this year, and my youngest just turned 25, and they live on their own. They're married, got a grandson. So I have a life dynamic. When I came back into magic, I was already a little bit older and had started raising my family and had the business and other things, and I was even teaching part-time at a night school.
Yeah.
And I threw away I went away from all of that because I thought, this isn't what am I doing? I'm doing this because this is kind of what everyone expected me to have, the normal life. Part of it was a failed attempt to try to be the pro magician years ago, to really make the living. But we didn't have the internet then. It was a much more difficult. It was
a whole different game. Yeah.
Yeah. There was no self-promotion.
Yeah.
I did a gig one time with my brother. We were doing a sub-trunk, and some big promoter was there. It was an outdoor show for a grand opening of this thing. And I was told, so-and-so's here. He books like 500 gigs a year, blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
And that's that's the only time I've ever completely boloed the sub-trunk. Gave away the method and everything. So it was a disaster. And that's kind of one of my, that's a very short version of the story, but that's one of my horror stories. You did the horror story. My brother dropped the curtain too soon.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And it's like, it went from, when I came out of the trunk, out of the bag, the audience was gone. That's how bad. Yeah. And so, and the booker didn't forget you, and I was in my early 20s, and it was kind of one of these things. How old was I? I was in college at the time.
Okay.
And so I was in school, but I was getting ready to quit school and pursue entertainment full time. So it was, but that again was back when there was less avenues, for you. And so that could be devastating, because here was your break, in essence, your opportunity to get into a market, and then you screwed it up. Right, yeah. So there was a series of things that happened like that, and I said, it's time to just try to have a normal life. And I kind of moved to California. I was living in California after that. And, in fact, I lived out Altadena for a while, not far
from us at all.
Yeah, we lived out there late 1980s, 1991. We were out there. We left in early part of 1991 because I got called into the Persian Gulf War. I was out of the service and got called back in.
Oh, wow.
So I was prior military, and that kind of disrupted my life for a while. And we got married and started a family. And so it wasn't until after my family was started that I went back in the business and everything. I went back in after getting out. Kind of a nutshell of a story, but when I did, I knew I had to make it what I wanted it to be, and I had to do some experimenting But I had to tell myself, I can't compare myself to the other people doing it this way or that way. I can learn from them, but you do have to, and that's where there's a tendency to feel alone and despair. Is there's no right answers. The right answer is the answer that answers the questions you need answered for you, not to try to be the David Copperfield or the Penn and Teller or the anybody else for that matter. And so it's, I don't know.
That's so good, man. I mean, it comes back again to what we first started talking about knowing who you are and being yourself and personal discovery. And I love that you said, when you came back in it, and I have a very similar story of giving up magic and then coming back to it, and just the idea of, okay, well, what do I want to make this, rather than just taking whatever comes along or accepting whatever model we've seen before. I think it's a good encouragement that whatever your art is or your business is, to make it what you want it to be. And I think it's rad, man.
Well, I think that too, the most entertainers are not really good business people. Most of us get into this without the business sense. When I started in it, I didn't have the business sense.
Yeah.
After having had the company and been a teacher and been through the military for 8 years and different things, I had. So when I came back into it, I had all of that acumen and sense. Like, okay, now I know. Now I kind of know what to do. That doesn't mean I've done it all right, but I felt better armed the second time around, really making a go of it. But I also knew that vision was crucial and being true to myself. And I think that's one thing we lose that sometimes in trying all of these things.
Right.
You tend to lose who you are, and you can't do that. I mean, there's a danger in just trying, because you're a performer, you're trying to make the people laugh, you're trying to appeal to them, you need that feedback. I mean, the comedian, if people aren't laughing, you're failing.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm sorry, but, and I love that's what I love about comedy is you can't argue with the laugh.
Right.
No one can say they're not laughing, you suck.
Right.
They can say you suck all they want, but if the crowd's laughing, I'm sorry, you're winning. And so it's, and I really, that's another subject for another time, but I think comedy is a really crucial part of magic. Not that everyone needs to be hilarious.
Right.
If you don't have some humor and as a part of your entertainment, I kind of wonder what in the hell are you trying to do exactly?
Oh my gosh. Well, and you run this risk of being so self-indulgent. If there's no humor, then it's like, look at what I'm doing, and it's grandiose, and it's like, look, buddy, you've got doctors who are curing cancer in your audience, and you just found the Queen of Hearts. Calm the hell down. Oh, dude, I've had so much fun. I want to keep talking, but we're going to get off this thing because I've got stuff I want to talk to you about personal here. So I'm going to turn this off in a second. How can people find you, Curtis? How do they see what you're doing? How do they follow along? And if they want to have you come out and do something, or they just want to see what you're up to, what's the best way for them to find you?
I don't know. There's this thing called the internet, I guess.
I know.
No, I'm just being a smart ass. And fun. I'm not making fun of you.
No, I do that all the time. I'm always like, oh, how can people get a hold of you? And everyone's like, Google?
Well, it's a common thing that I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Right.
They all finish with, tell us, how to get a hold of you.
Right.
And it's just great. It's just kind of funny. I mean, it's like you just say, boom. But curtisthementalist.com is my main corporate website. I do have a public comedy mentalism show I do in Wichita, where I live.
Very cool.
Every month, the first Saturday of every month, called The Mastermind Show.
Awesome.
And that has its own website, mastermindshowwichita.com. It's at the Looney Bin Comedy Club the first Saturday of every month. Nice. And we've been doing that a couple of years now, and it's just been growing and growing and growing each month. And I like it because it's a place I can go and experiment, try new things.
Yeah. If
one thing kind of bombs, it doesn't really matter. And it's been doing great. We've been selling more tickets than some of the regular comedians, Comedy Central guys.
Wow.
I think part of it is because Wichita is starved for something different. And I kind of pride myself that I'm providing them with a different solution, a different kind of live entertainment, other than the martini bars and the sports bars and the shows that are in town already.
And and because it's a regular occurrence, people, they don't have to wait a year to bring their friend to it. They can come back the next month,
Yeah, right. I've tried to do it weekly, but it's not cost effective right now. In a town that's only 500,000 people, It's so we do it once a month, but yeah, CurtisTheMentalist.com. I'm on Facebook and reluctantly I'm on social media, but I'm out there. I'm not a big fan of
everyone who listens to this knows how we all feel about it. It's a necessary evil. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you, my friend. I'm so grateful to you guys. Go check out Curtis, and I'm going to turn this off, but we can keep talking.